Very good. I want you to pray with me. Giving and gracious God, we thank you so much for the way that you move, for the way that you draw us near to you, for the way that you call us however we are, however broken, however doubting, however consumed with ourselves, and lead us to a different life, a life where we are propelled out into the world as beacons of hope and love and light, where we carry the peace of God with us around every turn, where we are united together in fellowship and hope and mercy, that each and every one of us are covered in the grace of God. For the way that you love us, for the way that you hold us, we give you thanks in this moment and all the moments to come, that you might be in the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart, and that we might all be a part of your change in your world. The people of God proclaim together. Amen. You know, some days I wake up and I feel like it's 2013. Does anybody have that? You feel like you're just like a decade behind? Maybe 2013 wasn't that long ago for some of you, but feels like a really, really long time ago for me. I was a young 20-year-old back then, but it really wasn't that much different than today. I had an iPhone, just like I did today. And I drove to work in a Chevy Equinox, just like I do today. Different one, but I spent lots and lots of hours in the church building. Still do that today. Not that much different, right? And I'd wake up every morning and I'd get ready and I put my pants on the same way. I put on some different shoes, but I got dressed the same way. I just felt like I was a decade behind. But it really doesn't last for that long. You see, I can't go very far into the day without opening my eyes and rolling over, and then my wife is laying right there, right? And I realize it's not 2013. And pretty soon, little Gibson will come rumbling down the stairs, and climb into our bed, along with our 2 dogs. Very full bed. And it most certainly will not be 2013. And it's different, right? And different is good, right? We've already preached that sermon, right? Different is good. But then I step through the rest of my day, right? And I'm reminded that maybe, just maybe, different isn't always so good. I step into a store, and I see people walking around with their eyes glued to their phone, and they're focused and they're driven, and it's like I don't exist at all, right? And then after that, turn on the television, and I hear all these words over and over again, every other phrase, right? It's right and left, and then woke, and fringe, and liberal, and conservative. And I don't feel like I used to hear those words all the time in 2013, right? And then I talk to people, and I hear these horror stories from parents and students, from friends and loved ones, from colleagues, about their experiences at work, school, churches, and online, and in their communities. And it all just demonstrates that sometimes different isn't so good. And then I look at our culture, and I see less and less community. Less and less communities of faith, less and less community organizations that are engaged and plugged in. I see less gatherings, and less meals, less celebration, less debate, less honest conversation, less love. And sometimes I look out and I see a divide that's so wide that I could just slip right into it, and no one would even know the difference. And in these moments, when I feel helplessness, when I feel like somehow I just got left behind, today's scripture from Acts, well, it feels woefully repellent. Like, gross. I don't want to read that. That doesn't pertain to my life. This depiction of an idealized community. But the truth is, as we dig into that text, there's so much more there. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. And everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. And all believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. And every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all those people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. This text comes on the heels of Peter preaching at Pentecost, right? And this depiction of the early church community, well, it feels like utopia. It feels like this unrecognizable example of an idealistic community. It feels overly joyful and happy. It feels kind of fake, right? It doesn't fit our understanding of the world. Anybody raise their hand and acknowledge that? I'll raise my hand and acknowledge it doesn't feel like our world. So what do we do? What do we do with that when we try to digest it and it just doesn't fit with everything we see around us? Well, we ignore it. We cast it aside. We dismiss it. We make excuses for why it just doesn't pertain to us. But the truth of the matter is it does. It does pertain to us. The reason we run from community is not because we don't love community. We absolutely love community. We long for it. There's a part of us that yearns for everything that community provides, for belonging to something that's bigger than us, for being a part of a group that means something, for being supported and being loved and being held by people who have your best interest at heart, for being truly seen. We all long for that. For those glad and sincere hearts that were described in the passage. So why do we run? Why do we run and turn our backs on community? Why do we lean into the great divide instead of community? The truth is we're terrified of what community asks of us. Of what community, true community, requires of us. I know you're not going to like it. I did say it. But we're terrified of it because it does ask a lot of us. And we're afraid of that ask. You know, I was at a big meeting with this company that I once worked for, and there were a bunch of stakeholders in the room, like bigwigs, people that really move the needle. Anybody ever been in a meeting like that before? Now you're asking yourself, how was I in that meeting? That's a different story for a different day, but I was there, okay? And we were talking about growth, we were talking about evolution, we were talking about how to take the next step. And I asked the head of HR, this is an executive, I asked the question, why are we so afraid of accountability? Do you want to know the response that I got? Why are we so afraid of accountability? And she said, accountability is a dirty word. Let's not use that here. Accountability is a dirty word. Well, if you didn't know, it's not. It's not. It's a very clean and polished word. But you know what it is? Honest. It's honest. In a community, in any relationship, you have to be accountable. Because your ownership is over your piece of the pie, and you have to hold others in your heart. It's not just about you. And in that world out there, the culture that we live in, it really feels like it's all about us. They didn't give a point, right? You have ads targeted to what your desires and your wants and your needs are. And you can hold up a phone to your face and film yourself and take pictures, And it feels very much like it's all about me. But in relationships, and most importantly in community, it's not all about you. The same love that you want, well, you have to give it. And that same support that you crave, you have to offer it. And that same joy that you seek, well, you have to contribute to it. Present, not perfect, right? It requires availability. It requires work. The truth is, my friends, community only goes as far as we take it. It only holds us as much as we hold each other. And in those moments in life, we long for someone to hold us. We long for community. It's only there if we've contributed to it. And we do long. We long for someone to love us in the same way that God does. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily with those who were being saved. God is calling us to faith, to be saved by the grace of God. But guess what? Guess what? In those moments where we invest in one another, in those moments where we extend the arms of community, where we reach out and say, I'm available, we save people too. We save people from the grief that surrounds them, from the fear that overtakes them, from the isolation that ultimately destroys them. And in each of those moments, when you get to be a member of community, when you get to be a part of the larger pie, when you get to serve and live in the way that God calls us to live, you get to save people too. Much in the way that God saved you, much in the way the community saves you. We're called to live in this way. To live in the way that God ordained us to live, just like Jesus, to love and to offer our hearts, to give and serve and be united. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of the bread and to prayer. And everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. And every day, they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Thanks be to God.